Hello dear friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Mukesh English. In this video, we are going to have a discussion of a famous play, The Boy Comes Home by A.A.Milne. It's a famous comedy. Let's know about A.A.Milne. Milne was quite well-known English playwright, novelist, and essayist of the 1930s and 40s. He was born at Kilburn, London in England. He was an alma mater of Trinity College, Cambridge. His notable work is Winnie the Pooh, which was published in 1926. He started his career as a journalist and was first noticed by the reader of those years as a writer of light comic essays for Punch. Among his noted and stage-worthy plays are Mr. Pym Passes by 1919 and The Dover Road in 1921. The characters in the play. There are five major characters in this play. The master character Philip, who is a young man of 23 years old. Uncle James, aged man, very strict person by nature, who looks after Philip. Aunt Emily, Philip's aunt. Then Mrs. Higgins, she's a cook in Uncle James' house, and Mary, the parlor maid. The story begins like this. Introduction to the play. The Boy Comes Home by A.A.Milne is a comedy. The drama examines the issues associated with the generation gap. The older generation believes that younger, immature, and unaware of its responsibilities to its family and society. In fact, the younger generation is more responsible and mature. It also shows respect for the elderly. Philip is 23 years old young man who has just returned from 4 years in the war. James, who is Philip's uncle, is looking after Philip. He adores his aunt Emily. Uncle James is a man of discipline and he always seeks perfection in all aspects of his life. Now, the story begins. Philip's demands for the breakfast. At 10 a.m., Philip enters the dining room for breakfast. Breakfast should not be served after 8 a.m. according to Uncle James' rules. As a result, Philip finds nothing on the table. When he requests Mary, the parlor maid, to bring him some boiled eggs and a cup of tea, she replies that Mrs. Higgins, the chef, the cook, may not accept this. Meanwhile, his aunt Emily arrives. She's a lovely lady. Philip is smitten with her. He communicates his affection for her while also expressing his disdain for Uncle James' commanding behavior. Now, let's see how does he deal with the servants. When Mary comes from the kitchen, she informs Aunt Emily that Mrs. Higgins wishes to speak with her. Philip stops her as she is ready to depart and asks Mary to bring Mrs. Higgins. This action shows Philip's maturity in dealing with the servants. Mrs. Higgins claims that breakfast has been served at 8 o'clock in the morning since she came and that she cannot modify it until she receives an order from the master. The disagreement has reached to that level that Mrs. Higgins has issued a 1 month notice and Philip instantly responds by handling a check. There's a spelling error, CHEQUE, handling a check for 1 month's salary in advance and instructing the chef to resign from the job and leave the house. Mrs. Higgins is surprised by Philip's conduct and she immediately alters her demeanor and brings breakfast to Philip. Aunt Emily notes the transformation Philip has undergone since the war. Philip handles this problem diplomatically and authoritatively that he is no longer the youngest who fled home 4 years ago. Now, what does Uncle James want? Philip makes his way to the dining area to have his breakfast. Uncle James walks in and tells Aunt Emily that he has been waiting for Philip to talk about the business for a long time. Uncle James wants that Philip will join the company when the time is appropriate. He wants that Philip should join his business. So when Aunt Emily advises that he should inquire Philip's readiness, but he says that no, 4 years of army service would not result in a change in his maturity level. Uncle James is adamant that army would not give Philip decision-making skills and he will not be able to choose a career for his future. So he says that He says that Philip is still immature. He cannot think about his career, so he will definitely listen whatever Uncle James says. So, what's a dream which Uncle James has seen? Aunt Emily requests Uncle James to wait for Philip until he has finished his breakfast. Uncle James falls asleep and has a dream in which he sees Philip as a rough young man smoking a pipe in front of his uncle. He demands the money that Philip's father left for him that was seen in the dream. Despite the fact that Uncle James has already assured Philip that he will pay the money as soon as he becomes 25 or he's a 25, he requested. To demonstrate his maturity in handling his father's money, Philip remembers an episode in Somme where he worked as a soldier. So let's know there's a flashback about the Somme battleground here. The Somme, the Somme was a battleground where Philip's company would launch an attack the following day. They were entrenched. The German army attacked, and the leader desired to flee. However, he did not obtain approval from the commanding officer. The commander was assassinated the next day. Philip was appointed as the new commander. He had three choices. Number one, they might initially remain there and await for further directions. Number two, they may defy the commanding officer and relocate to another trench. Number three, he may meet the commanding officer and explain the problem. So he was in a very precarious situation. Many soldiers' lives dependent on him. He was transferred to another trench and he returned to commanding officer and he described the issue before returning to the company. So that was the Somme battleground which he has recalled. Now, let's see Philip's maturity. Philip was a young man with little experience before going to war. He merely carried out the directions. Now he is mature enough to make his own decision after 4 years of experience. When Uncle James invites him to join the jam business, his own business, Philip declines. He denies. He expressed a desire in studying architecture. He would like to pursue the architecture course. He even threatens Uncle James with a revolver, and when Uncle James protests, he pulls out a bomb. Uncle James gladly agrees to accomplish his will. Uncle James says that, okay, you continue your career as an architect or the architecture field. Uncle James awakens from his slumber to find Philip entering the room in reality. Uncle James is terrified by the dream. Philip apologizes for being late. With his consent, he lights his pipe. Uncle James talks about his future plans. Philip is adamant that he will not wear the outfit again. Uncle James inquires if he wishes to pursue a career in the architecture. Philip's final decision. Philip is confused by Uncle James' suggestion to join architecture. He denies it, claiming that has passed that age. He says that my age does not give me an opportunity to become an architect. When Uncle James asks Philip whether he wants to join the jam business, he agrees without hesitation. He informs Uncle James that he wants to sell revolver because it has no purpose in London. Uncle James feels relieved since Philip does not behave as he did in his dream. So whatever the behavior we have seen, Philip's odd behavior, that was a behavior in Uncle James' dream. But in reality, he does not behave in that manner. Uncle James' perspective toward Philip and the youthful generation alters as a result of the dream. Now, let's conclude the play. Hence, the new generation prefer maximum freedom from all narrow and stringent restrictions imposed by the elders. The greatest value of the old generation is obedience and respect for elders. Uncle James is a symbolic character who constantly upholds the old values and social traditions. The most important point emphasized by the author is that even good social values and traditions become taboos and a burden on society when blindly followed, and when any real sense is taken out of them. It is, in fact, a conflict between tradition and modernity that goes on side by side in all ages. Dear friends, thank you so much for watching this video. You can reach me at mukeshenglish@gmail.com. Please do subscribe the channel, click on the like button for more videos on literature, workbook, pronunciation, grammar, communication skills, presentation skills, interview skills. Stay in tune with Mukesh English. Thank you once again.